Musalia Mudavadi's aide Kibisu Kabatesi. He says any public servant purporting to allocate ministerial locations or portfolios is misguided to the extent that they are attempting to usurp a function that belongs to the president. Trouble in paradise, they say. That's a big story there. The other story given prominence on the front page with a huge photo there, Ruto pitches tent in China. President William Ruto, and there's a photo of him arriving in Beijing, China yesterday to take part in the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation meeting. Also on the front page, a special report, a highlight on this special report, slumlord millionaires making a kill from the poor. Brewers in Nairobi's sprawling slums are sending their customers to an early grave by mixing industrial chemicals to the drinks they are manufacturing illegally. This is a special report covered extensively on pages 2 and 3 of the Standard this morning. On the top strip of the Standard are the highlights. In politics, Raila praise for Kalonzo raises eyebrows. That story is on page 5. It's one of those very much talked about stories today. On the international scene, official Gaza conditions, a total disaster. The story is on page 20 on the international news. On the health and science pullout, dementia, dispelling the myths, facing the realities. That's inside the Standard. And in sports, limping stars face Russia. The story is on page 32. That's the back page of the Standard, which I'm looking at right now. Limping Kenya face Russia, test in today's match. Harambee Stars will be seeking to prove to their fans that they have put their house in order ahead of their international friendly against Russia today in Antalya, Turkey. And a photo there of Harambee Stars Masood Juma being aided by medics after he got injured in a friendly match against South Sudan. And they've used that image of him together with a headline, Limping Kenya. The other story on the back page is to do with rugby. Olympic ticket eludes Kenya Lionesses. But as we mentioned in our highlights today, France are through to the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup. They beat South Africa through to the semi-finals after beating France. So for rugby lovers, some interesting story there.
Oh yes, I mean it has been an interesting turn of events in the whole Rugby World Cup and how it has been. But speaking of being interesting, Daily Nation is quite busy this particular morning, covering matters, sports, politics, and all that. The big story in bold actually matters education inside the big junior high mess. What school? Daily Nation asks. A Nation investigation reveals the story. There are the sorry state of junior schools located in public primary schools. There's little or no learning going on, with a few teachers stretched to the limit and covering all the subject areas by themselves, thus affecting learning quality. And things can only get worse as a new class transitions in 2024. We have that on page 4 and 5. Just below that, Mudavadi takes on Koskei over roles and office. Prime CS and Foreign and Diaspora Affairs CS Musalia Mudavadi has accused a Chief of Staff, Felix Koskei, of overstepping his mandate, escalating an ongoing tussle with Public Service CS Moses Kuria over the roles and locations of their offices. That is on page 6. On the right side there, in matters sports, Kenyan 1-2-3 sweep. So talking about Kenya's Joshua Bellet running towards the tape to the 2023 Amsterdam Marathon. He led compatriots Cyprian Kotut and Bethel Chumba. And because, I mean, it's a Monday, Fred and Flora, makofi kwa...
Congratulations to Joshua Bellet, Cyprian Kotut and Bethel Chumba.
Oh, yes. Making us proud there. On the top strip, matters politics. Raila endorses Kalonzo to face Ruto in 2027 State House contest. You have that on page 7. And a photo there of Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Raila Odinga. On the left strip of Daily Nation, also a big story and also a question of the day, what is happening in Athi River in Mavoko. Land row, pain and agony as homes on Puntland land brought down. The demolition of palatial homes, churches and schools entered its third day, despite a plea by Ukambani leaders to President Ruto to order a halt to the quote-unquote inhumane demolitions. That is on page 2. And on page 23, you'll read this story. The whole is happening in Meru County. Fresh trouble for Kawira as elders back impeachment. The political wars facing Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza seem to have intensified after the Njuri Nchake Council of Elders endorsed plans by MCAs to remove her from office. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. While on the back page, matters sports. We're taking a look at that. Still also reflects on the Standard. Kenya play Russia in historic fixture. Talking about this particular game to be played, or the kicking off at 7 p.m. Kenyan time today, actually, at Mardan Sports Complex in Antalya, Turkey. Harambee Stars on the brink of meeting a European nation on European soil for the very first time. Well, also kudos to Harambee Stars. Hopefully, Firat's engine will sail them through. No pun intended.
All the best to Harambee Stars as they face Russia.
Oh, yes.
Of all nations.
Right. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Habari kuu pale katika gazeti la Taifa Leo asubuhi hii ni nitakufa na Kalonzo mwaka 2027, asema Raila adokeza kumuunga mkono Musyoka kwa urais uchaguzi mkuu ujao. Na pale hivyo Raila Odinga akisema, nilisikia Ruto akisema kuwa anajua sitawania mwaka wa 2027, eti kwa hivyo anajiandaa kukabili Kalonzo. Nia yake ni kutugawanya. Anadhani ni mwerevu, tutamuonyesha kuwa hajui kitu na tutamuunga Kalonzo kwa dhati kwa kuwa ni mwaminifu. Hayo ni matamshi ya kinara wa Azimio Raila Odinga. Na vile katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, habari nyingine ni bei ghali ya mafuta ya kera eneo la North Rift, na wakazi wa ngome ya Ruto walaani ongezeko zaidi ya bei ya kawi. And I was wondering, how am I not seeing that story on increase in fuel prices on any of the dailies?
Kenya have grown now.
Yeah.
Fuel prices are not featuring on the front pages today.
Yeah, just like ongeza tu tutasonga nayo. Na habari nyingine katika gazeti la Taifa Leo ni mapinduzi ya Ruto zizi la Raila. Rais aanza kuwarushia wakazi wa Nyanza minofu minono. Vile katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, habari nyingine pale, mbinu mpya ya kuzuia wizi wa mitihani za buniwa. Wizara yatangaza utaratibu mpya wa kumaliza udanganyifu. Hii hata tukitarajia mitihani hiyo kuanza mwisho wa mwezi huu. Na habari nyingine katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, Hamas Kenya yahimizwa ichangie kukomesha vita. Viongozi wa Kiislamu wataka Rais Ruto sasa na Umoja wa Mataifa wazime mapigano huko Gaza. Na hiyo ni habari ambayo iko katika ukurasa wa pili katika gazeti la Taifa Leo. Na Mutua ndani ya sakata ya mabilioni, mkaguzi mkuu apendekeza utawala wake Machakos uchunguzwe. Huyo ni aliye waziri sasa wa masuala ya utalii. Na katika masuala ya spoti, Ubelgiji na Holanzi mawindoni. Ubelgiji yaalika Sweden, Holanzi Ureno ugenini kufuzu Euro 2024. Na hizo ndizo taarifa kuu katika gazeti la Taifa Leo asubuhi hii.
Okay, let's move on to the People Daily. And on the front page of the People Daily, the big headline this Monday: Senate sets pace for key changes in health sector. Move clears path for the president to unveil proposed universal health coverage during this week's Mashujaa Day celebrations. Ball now with MPs who have two bills. The story is on page 4, and it just talks about those 3 new health funds that NHIF will transition into. The other big story on the front page of the People Daily this morning: agony of losing one's home. A very painful an agonizing image there of a gentleman watching as his home is pulled down by bulldozers. This is in Mavoko. And it's in line with our question today: do you support the government's move to demolish houses on the controversial Portland cement land? even as you continue giving us your feedback on that. Investors count losses in the tens of millions of shillings after their houses were demolished following a court order. On the top strip of the People Daily this morning, leave Azimio alone, focus on poll pledges, Raila tells Ruto. The story is on page 6. And a small mention of fuel prices. As I said, Kenyans are grown numb. More strain in pocket as fuel prices go up again. And it's curious that we reserve a small corner on our daily front pages to talk about the fuel prices. Yeah. It is 217 shillings per litre.
Should actually be the headline.
And actually,
500 bob can barely get you 2 litres of fuel, surely.
And actually, even on the cartoon on the Standard, we'll get to that, but it also reflects the same. You know, how gentleman there says, hata sijali.
Okay.
Nataka tu nifike.
Wow.
That's
the front page of the People Daily this morning. Right.
Let's take a look at Business Daily Matters economy here, and talking about houses. And where did it go? Yes, Ruto's low-cost homes prices and payment plan revealed. So cheapest houses to cost 840,000 Kenyan shillings, and a new plan. Workers earning more than 150,000 Kenyan shillings eligible for houses. That is the big story on Business Daily. Other stories making there. I'll just scroll with you just below there. Weak shilling hands CBK 131 billion shillings unrealized forex gain. And on the right side, first quarter revenue growth slowest in 5 years. Matters tax collections for the first quarter of the current financial year increased at the slowest pace since 2018, excluding the pandemic year, despite enforcement of new taxation measures by William Ruto administration. That is on page 4. And in Matters economy, smartphones top KRA list of items for Eldoret airport sale. Smartphones and feature phones dominate the list. Items set to be auctioned at the Eldoret International Airport as KRA seeks to recover unpaid taxes. And finally on that ticker, Matters companies, equity allowed to auction Wida Highway Motel. Well, in Matters intelligence, Carol Musyoka says, last month a work assignment had me back in the US. I got schooled a good one at the University of Character Development. As in Matters intelligence. And well, in Matters the pull out there, Matters life, exercising after thyroid disease. That is on the front page of Business Daily.
Well, and now let's have a look at the Star this morning. The top headline there, cartels making a killing from pending bills. These connected individuals seek hefty bribes to facilitate payments to desperate suppliers. And that is a big story there on the Star. And also pictured more pain, agony as Athi River demolitions enter day 3. Those are just some of the pictures of those houses that have been demolished in Athi River area. And on the right strip of the Star this morning, cop shoots hubby 12 times in bloody love triangle row. And away from that, senators probe 1.2 billion shillings legal fees in Machakos County. And that is what we have on the Star. Also on the very top strip of the Star, Raila beat Kibaki hands down in 2007, ex-election officials reveals. And that story there is on page 4 to 5 of the Star this morning.
Okay, even as we cross to look at regional matters, let's take a look at the front page of the East African. Museveni's 2025 oil plan rigged up. Rigs, financiers, oil majors are aligned to deliver their legacy project. What could possibly go wrong? Many things. The story is covered on pages 4 and 5. Other highlights on the front page of the East African, a photo of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Samia Suluhu, the President of Tanzania, and they say Samia perfects Ruto's moves. Other highlights on the front page of the East African, the toll of Gaza crisis on African economies, and EAC alarmed by clashes in DR Congo's troubled East. And that's the front page of the East African today.
Right, and now still on matters, now that we've crossed the whole East African, begin with Kampala in Uganda. The front page of Daily Monitor, The big story is Ugandans lose billions to get rich quick schemes. And it also highlights that it's a whole fertile ground, the revelation this month that several Ugandans had been left in tears after a scheme went under with a collective 1.7 billion Ugandan shillings has opened a can into the ventures that have exposed 37,000 citizens to fraudsters over the years. Well, that is on page 4. And just below it, I have a photo there of young children around the dump site to whom it may concern, and a mass contracting Ive storm over poorly dumped waste. Well, just a brief of other stories making it in Uganda. Mudoma installed as new Bamasaba cultural leader. I'm reminded that the NMS there isn't the Kenyan one, the Ugandan NMS. And remember, Fred, matters HIV always being big on the front page of Uganda. Well, they also form the front page of Uganda's paper today. Scientists make strides in HIV vaccine research. There's on page 3, actually. Matters education, government school where 4 classes share 2 rooms, and security foil bomb attack on churches. Matters bomb still, the whole bomb attack still making the top headlines in Uganda. That is on the Daily Monitor. Mm-hmm.
Well, and on the Citizen this morning, global recovery revs up domestic manufacturing. That's a headline there. And the value of goods manufactured in Tanzania rose to 13.74 trillion shillings by the year ended June 30th, 2023, from 12.65 trillion shillings during the preceding year, driven by the global recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And away from that, Widows Global Body picks Tanzania as a country director. And we also have Zanzibar set to open Cybersecurity Operations Center. And away from that, also featured in Tanzania, how 413-kilometer SADC road link will benefit Tanzania. That's what we have on the Citizen this morning.
Sawa, tusalie kule Bongo, tuangalie gazeti la Mwananchi Tanzania. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi: mahindi yapasua vichwa wakubwa, ziara zao za kumbana na vilio vya wakulima, serikali yapanga kuweka bei elekezi, yazungumzia nchi zilizositisha kuyanunua ikiahidi kuyanunua yenyewe kulipa malimbikizo. Hiyo ndo habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi kule Tanzania. Habari zingine zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi: usajili wanaotaka kuondoka Israel waendelea. Kwingineko, ukuu wa mkoa wamtenganisha Sendiga na ADC. Kidokezo kingine, safari ya siku 1096 za urais wa Daktari Mwinyi kwenye ukurasa wa 22. Pale juu kwenye jarida la Mwananchi, sakata la madaktari tarajali la fukuta, wataka majibu. Kwingineko, walioenda Butiama kwa baiskeli kumwenzi Nyerere wa mkuna Msigwa. Hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa jarida la Mwananchi kule Tanzania hii Jumatatu ya leo.
Na tukirejea hapa nyumbani, je, mbele iko sawa? That is on matters fuel prices. That is on page 12 for the Standard this morning, as we take a look at how these particular cartoons are just setting the pace for this particular week. It's interesting, the Standard normally goes with matters international. It has started with local news this particular morning. So Gamzo goes with a fuel station, and well, the driver, the lady there says, "Nambele ko sawa boss," and the gentleman says, "Ata sijali, that price will take me back home." Driving a KCS 2027 KM.
It's interesting the colors they've used for the petrol attendant. It's green and yellow, which represent a certain political party in Kenya.
Yes.
Do we have the cartoon on the People Daily? I haven't seen it.
Definitely there it
Oh,
is.
great. On the screen there, turning off Mwangaza will not be a walk in the park.
Lemuki,
Getting rid of Governor Mwangaza is not going to be that easy, yeah?
your governor, any sentiments?
She's always making headlines every other.
And that guitar always has to feature in
Yeah.
all these cartoons.
He said the problem is the guitar.
That's a cartoon on the People Daily. Let's take a look at the cartoon on the Daily Nation today. On the Daily Nation, page 17, they talk about investment in and out. Someone carrying bags of money walks into this building, branded investment. There's a lot of fire, and what comes out the other side is a skeleton on its knees. You invest money, come out with nothing. Sad state of affairs. And that's the cartoon on the Daily Nation today. Now, for our conversation today, do stand by. We'll be coming back to discuss a lot of things. The dailies today have a lot of interesting headlines, from matters education to politics to the squabbles, even in cabinet. And today we're going to be having the Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former cabinet minister, and Honorable John Kaguchia, MP Mukurweini, for this conversation. Do stand by for that. A quick reminder of our question this morning. Do you support the government's move to demolish houses on the controversial Portland cement land? Do you support the government's move to demolish houses on the controversial Portland cement land? Keep giving us your feedback on our social media pages on X, TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. We're hoping to sample your feedback as we go along with this broadcast. For now, we take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. Before we get down to the discussion, a quick news update. Dozens of angry fishermen at the Kamene beach in Naivasha are at this moment held up in a demonstration and have since barricaded the busy Moi South Lake Road over alleged theft of fishing gear and engine from their boats. That includes one that belongs to the Nakuru County government. The 4 engines are said to be worth $1 million. Or 1 million shillings rather, and we'll be crossing over to Willie Dennis Njiru, our correspondent there, for more details. I don't know if we have Willis Njiru now. Okay, a very good morning to you, Willis. Dennis, kindly bring us up to speed with what's happening with that protest in Naivasha.
Thank you very much indeed, my colleague in studio. Indeed, it is an ugly morning right here in Naivasha. As you can see, behind me is irate fishermen around here. And if you can just look around, that is the situation along Moi South Lake Road, where the protesters are protesting over, as you have said, theft over fishing gear and about 4 engines that include one from the county. A few years ago, the Nakuru County government indeed gave 40 horsepower engines that are quite expensive to be able to do patrols and rescue operations around here. And it's quite an ugly moment where in the wee hours of this day, they woke up to the situation as was. All the catches that they had around here was all taken away by unknown people. And as such, they have venged their anger on this road. Remember, this Moi South Lake Road is a very, very busy road. This road actually leads to Kengen. I can maybe tell, unless those who are on night shift have not been able to leave the Kengen plant, and those who are supposed to check in today, they have not done so. And that includes also a section of those people working on flower farms on the other end. But we have got the residents here who are going to be telling us much about this. Nieleze jina lako na utueleze shida iko wapi.
Kwa majina ninaitwa Frederick Nyawade, mimi ni mvuvi hapa Kamere Beach. Kumetukia usiku wa manane ambapo kumekuja na watu ambao hatuwafahamu. Wameingia katika hii beach yetu na wakaweza kuiba injini zetu, wakaweza kuiba hata mashini zetu za kufanya maandamano, wakaweza hata kuchukua 40 horsepower ambao tulinunuliwa na watu wa County Fisheries. Wameua maaskari wetu ambao wanalinda pale, wameweza kuharibu hata hoteli zetu zote, hata wameweza kuchukua kila kitu pale kwa bichi yetu. Kwa hivyo tunaandamana, mambo yamekuwa mabaya, lakini wile tunataka ni Moses Kuria, tunataka Kindiki wakuje hapa, maana hii situation imewasen, imechukua muda sana. Tumelilia dhidi ya wavuvi haramu, illegal fishermen ambao wanaitwa korosho, wametunyanyasa kwa muda. Kwa hivyo hatuna haki kama wananchi.
Sasa kwa majina yangu naitwa Mboro. Mimi ni chairman hapa. Sasa kuna watu wamekuja hapa, wamepora engine na wakaweza kupiga watu ambao wanafanya patrol hapa ndani. Sasa tunataka ile idara ya security ikuje hapa isuruhishe hii maneno.
Wacha tusikie kutoka kwa mwingine. Ndugu, nieleze jina lako na utueleze, ama tusikie kwa mimi.
Kwa majina naitwa Crispin. Tumepata shida leo. Tulikuwa tumeamuka tukapata watu wa korosho wameingia hapa, wakafika kwa beach, walikuwa wengi sana, around kitu 100. Walikuwa mbeba panga, wakashika watu wakawapiga, wakachukua kijana mdogo anaitwa Moses, wakamfunga kamba, wakamdunga visu, wameenda na yeye. Hatujui kama amekufa ama hako. Na kitu yenye tunaomba serikali watusaidie, wachukue mtu anaitwa Zuma, mkubwa wa Coast Guard, wamtoe hapa ama rudisha Sirima. Juu tunaenda ama kama waezi hivyo Sirima arudi, watutolea hapa Coast Guard tubaki na fishery. Hiyo ndio tunaomba.
Security kwa maji. Kama saa hii mimi sina engine imeenda.
Kuna yako imeibiwa.
Yetu imeenda.
Ilikuwa how much?
How much? Pesa ama? Pesa. 250.
Hakuna. Engine nne zimeibiwa. Na engine moja inatoka 350,000. Wewe niambie saa hii na hii economy venye imetufinya hivi. Mtu atanunua aje? Tutaenda aje kazi? Mafuta yenyewe yamepanda. Wamechukua mtu mmoja amosema rangi wameenda na yeye hatujui ako wapi. Insecurity iko kwa hii maji. Hivyo ndio sisi tunasema.
Unataka nini?
Coast Guard waende. Hatuwataki kwa sababu hawatusaidii.
Pole taratibu.
Tafadhali naomba Coast Guard waende. Coast Guard wanapeana laini ya uvuvi ya haramu kwa hii beach. Tunataka Coast Guard waende kwa sababu wameruhusu wavuvi haramu kuingia katika uvuvi. Hadi wametushambulia katika mali zetu.
Asante.
Coast Guard wanajua ndio wametumana. Sijali walikuwa na mkutano hapa. Wao ndio wametumana hiyo mangi nifanyie hiyo. Hao ndio wametumana.
Hiyo ni allegations tu ndugu.
Kwa majina anajulikana kama Kennedy Akula. Mimi ni mvuvi wa hii bahari, lakini tunalia sana kwa maana tumeteswa sana na watu wa korosho. Watu wa korosho watu ambao wanagani Coast Guard. Sisi tunalia lakini wanapiga Coast Guard wanawalinda. Jamani, hata kama Kithure Kindiki akuja atuone sasa anatutetea aje. Sisi tuko na license lakini tunaumia. Tutafika wapi tafadhali? Jamani tunaomba tu. Asante.
Nashukuru. Hebu nisongeni kidogo. Nisongeni. If our viewers could just have a glimpse of what is happening here actually. This is a boat that is actually on fire. As we can see right now behind us, there is a bit of anxiety here, and the police have actually been here trying to control the situation, but perhaps they could have been overwhelmed because the tear gases have indeed slowed down, awaiting perhaps more mobilization to contain the situation as is here. That is it for me right about now. We will be keeping tabs in what is going to be developing around here in our later and subsequent bulletin and news live coverage. Back to you in studios.
Thank you, my colleague Willis Dennis Njiru there. Very interesting situation in Naivasha as angry fishermen protest the alleged stealing or theft of engines from their fishing boats. And they say the engines are worth about 1 million shillings. And they've barricaded the Moi South Lake Road, which leads to Kenjan. And that's the situation there. And Willis Dennis Njiru will be briefing us as we continue with the day on the happenings there. Now, this morning we're privileged to have the Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former cabinet minister, with us in studio. Good morning, karibu sana. It's good to have you on TV47.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's also my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we are hoping Honorable John Kaguchia will be joining the panel. But before that, there's a lot we can discuss this morning. There's a lot to discuss even from the dailies. There's the politics, there are fuel prices, squabbles in government. And but before we get to that, there's a story that has been on the headlines this whole weekend, and that has to do with the demolitions in Mavoko. And I would want us to pay attention to that for a few minutes before we proceed to the politics. At least on the front page of the Daily Nation today, it's been given some small highlight. Pain and agony as homes on Portland land brought down. The demolition of palatial homes, churches and schools entered its third day, despite a plea by Ukambani leaders to President Ruto to order a halt to the inhumane demolitions. It's been featured prominently, at least on the front page of the Star and the People Daily. It is a big talking point. And the president himself added his voice to this matter, and he said once the court has given direction, then those people have to move from that land. Now, this issue of land in Kenya is a very emotive one. And demolitions and how government conducts its demolitions. Case in point, back in 2020, when a group of residents in Kariobangi also evicted from land by the government, land which on their side they claim they own, the same way as the people in Mavoko, and the government says otherwise. This issue of land, will we ever get it right? Because for these people to actually end up building homes and staying there for years, close to 10 years, definitely, they must have some form of documentation allowing them to do that.
Well, the challenge in Kenya is that, of course, land increasingly is becoming a scarce resource given the population that we have today. But also, the most important thing is why don't we have a human face to everything? I remember the president, immediately after taking over, he made a clear position that whenever there is a dispute between somebody who has settled on a piece of land and somebody else who is making a claim, such issue should be settled amicably, so that if there is compensation by whoever is occupying, should be adequate compensation to whoever has a counterclaim. The second one is the deputy president himself has been on a number of occasions been very clear that never again shall Kenyans be evicted mercilessly under the leadership of President William Ruto. So when you look at these issues, you wonder, when do we give priority? We know some of the hotels in town have been said to have been on land that was initially public land belonging to some organization within the government. But that hotel is still standing where it is, and the matter is in court. And the same, the people of Mavoko. I heard many of them, including Governor Vinya, saying this is still a matter actively in court, because I think they appealed against the position that the court pronounced itself on. So I would have expected some of these issues to be settled amicably. And the standard way of doing it is that whenever there is a court order, the district or the sub-county security committee ought to spend a bit of time to ventilate on the issue and come up with the effective solution to such a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the issue of squatters is another issue that the government is grappling with. People encroaching on land that they initially do not own, but then later, after staying there for a number of years, laying claim on the same and saying now it is rightfully ours. This is not the first case. There are cases even at the coast and elsewhere. How else then can the government handle this matter without necessarily going against the human rights of some of these people?
Well, I think it depends on the wisdom of those who occupy those offices, because at the end of the day, when somebody lays a claim, matters may not be necessarily expedited in a court of law. Some of the issues can go to alternative dispute resolution to see how do we balance between whoever is taking a claim and whoever is living on that particular piece of land. After all parcels of land belong to the state, and therefore once I get a title to a certain parcel of land, issues should be interrogated whether I wrongfully got the title or I rightly got that title through the proper procedure. But this demolition, in my opinion, is really casting aspersion on the very issue of Hutu in Kenya, because you remember that, like this one of Machakos, Mavoko, children are going to sit for exams and they don't know how they are going to survive. 5 charges were pulled down, and many other investments that people have undertaken. It is a matter that, as a nation, we must soberly look at it, without necessarily creating a lot of challenges the way we are seeing today.
Okay. Allow me to introduce Honorable John Kaguchia, MP Mukurweini, who's joining the panel this morning. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And you found us just beginning to discuss this issue about the demolitions in Mavoko with Bwana Kirwa here. And we're asking, because the issue of land in Kenya is very emotive. There are issues that are yet to be resolved. Even that Ndungu land report, everyone keeps mentioning it, that is just gathering dust on some shelf somewhere. But on this issue of the East Africa Portland Cement Company and the squatters who have occupied that land, it is a matter that has been processed through court. But many are asking for such a situation to persist for over 10 years, people to end up actually buying land. There must have been some involvement of some senior government officers in this. Are really those people who've built or developed on that land who are now suffering through the demolitions, are they really to blame for what is happening to them?
It's an unfortunate situation whereby we have to have this kind of evictions and demolitions. Is actually disheartening and heartbreaking, because families that have invested in these homes are now left homeless, and this has a way of demoralizing these families. And not only that, can actually cause very serious stress to the family, to their health, and to the social fabric that exists in these areas. And of course, the impact of this is spiraling. It is going to also other sectors and other areas. And so it's a situation where we would rather not have any time in this country. When we ask who is to blame, we have to look at all the people who are involved in this scam. It's a very serious one. We have to look at the senior government officials who have allowed this to happen. Of course, you know, you cannot have document of ownership unless there's the government officers involved in this. At the same time, you also have the people themselves who fail also to do due diligence in the proper way. I was looking at some of the documentation that has been done about this land, and I came across a letter by the governor of Machakos then, Dr. Alfred Mutua. I think he had done a letter in 2015, and he had called on EACC to investigate this whole issue. And he had even gone ahead to mention names of politicians and senior government officials whom he alleged had encroached into this land and were using squatters as a human shield and to disguise the takeover of the Portland's land that they were getting into. And the letter was clear, and you'd have hoped that before one invests in this land, then they ought to probably have done a bit of due diligence to understand this is virgin land. It has stayed idle. It has not been built by anyone for all this time. I mean, what are the circumstances under which now it is leaving the government hands into private hands? I would personally be a bit careful if I was to invest in that kind of land. But all these people then would have to share this blame. But then, as we do these demolitions, the whole burden then cannot just be carried by the people who bought that land. We also need to be serious consequences on those people who subdivided this land, people who used their influence to acquire this land and then to have these Kenyans suffering in this manner. Okay. You can be sure some of those people have already taken home their spoil. Let's say if it's a politician who was peddling their political influence in this situation, they got what they got, and they are probably investing it somewhere else in a land that is not government, in a private investment.
What do you make of the government's approach? Because if we could draw parallels with what happened in 2020 in Kariobangi with the evictions there, the president back then, Uhuru Kenyatta, got a lot of criticism, and this was even used during the campaigns, that he demolished homes and he left people out, mothers and children, to spend nights in the cold because of that demolition. And the deputy president then and his running mate, William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, promised that this would never happen again. That even in an event where there's a dispute on land ownership between one person and the other, then it has to be resolved in a different way to ensure that anyone who's there is not evicted like this. Yet we saw the president himself on Friday, because he visited the area, giving a go-ahead for the eviction. What do you make of this?
Well, I think the circumstances could be a bit different from what we had in Kariobangi, because if you remember, the issue that was raised by the political class then was the issue of demolitions during the COVID time and also a rainy season. And then, of course, if you look at the families that were losing their homes at that point in time, were really the lower cadre of families. There were people who were truly of lower cadre. And the whole issue was that these people had been demolished, their homes were demolished. It was a COVID time. It was also rainy season, and the demolitions were being done at night. And in most cases, there were no court orders on these demolitions because this demolition was being done to give way or to pave way for the sewerage system. And I mean, that was being done in Kariobangi. And remember, the issue of that sewerage system that was being conducted or that was being done in that area was in one way or another also connected to another project that is happening somewhere along the northern bypass, I mean the eastern bypass. It was also connected to the northern collector tunnel, which is bringing water all the way from Muranga. And there has been a perception that the whole of that project has a little bit more of private interest, more than public interest. And so there was seen like there's someone who is trying to achieve their own private investment goals. And in that process, getting every other person who is on the way. Okay. In this case, if you look at what is happening here, and not to justify whatsoever, but I see the circumstances in this Portland cement land a bit different because you have, here is an industrial park that is expected to be done, and this is government land as well. There seems to be court orders that have been done. The case has been there, appeals have been done. I have seen this case before. So the issue of engaging the public in this case was not overruled, it was not overlooked. I particularly saw a case that had been carried, a story that had been carried in one of the media houses, I think about a month ago, on this case. And of course, there was a passionate appeal by the clergy who had a big church and also a big school in that area. And they were making a passionate appeal to be spared in this particular demolition. And of course, that tells you that there has been back and forth. There has been some kind of engagement. Okay. And of course, I think at some point the government then had to take lead in this and eventually repossess the public land. And having said that, I would also say it's important for us to look at the issue of the Dongo report. It's very important that that report is removed from the shelves so that we can cushion the public on some of the land that is earmarked as government land, because I'm sure it is a bit more comprehensive. Okay. I know it has been shielded from the public because of some of the big fish interests in that report. But we need to really bring it out so that we can understand which land belongs to the public and which land has also been grabbed by the private people, and that was public. Okay. So that we don't also have people who are not well connected suffering. Everyone really need to give back government land to public.
Do you see some sort of double speak here on the government's part? All land belongs to the government, either way. All the land in Kenya belongs to government. The community living there, they're Kenyans. This administration promised that it would handle Kenyans in a different way. It was a promise they made. And now the president himself giving a go-ahead for demolitions. Do you see some level of double speak on his part?
Well, at times when somebody makes a promise, it's different when the rubber hits the road. Because President William Ruto made a number of promises, majority of which he has not been able to fulfill, or he has almost done and about done. The issue of land, Portland cement land, the history goes so many years back, and it's not only this one in Mavoko. There are many parcels which have been earmarked, and there have been people who are located and they're already settled there. So what would be the yardstick to use in terms of who is allowed to ease off government land and who is not allowed to do so? So because all of them are investors, even the people who have built so many houses as you drive down towards Athi River, that was Portland land. It says Portland cement land. But how do you distinguish? If you are to go back to the records, from the beginning of time, this was Portland land. Now these other guys have been allowed, they have invested, they have sold houses, and people are living there. Now these ones, even if they have a problem, why don't we give it a human face? Because at the end of the day, all these are Kenyans. And of course, the new constitution does provide that any parcel of land within certain jurisdiction of a county, the county has a say. Therefore, doing that, what the government did last week, without the concurrence and the commitment and persuasion of the county leadership, is a double speak, just to use your words. It is unfortunate, it should be condemned, and we must realize that we are here today, we will not be here tomorrow. And if this is the way we are going to treat Kenyans, it is unfortunate and it is uncalled for.
Well, it is one of those big talking points today as the demolitions continue on day 4 of that exercise. Of course, there was a court order issued last week, and the president made a mention of it as he gave go-ahead for the demolitions to happen. Quite a number of people have lost their houses, and the demolition continues. We're talking about some almost 1,000 acres of land that belongs to the Portland Cement Company that is now controversial. Well, Morning Cafe takes a break. We will be back with the Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa and John Kaguchia MP Mukurweine to continue with this discussion. I'll be looking at some of the squabbles in government to do with office space. Would you imagine that? That after the break. Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former cabinet minister, and Honorable John Kaguchia, MP Mukurweine constituency. This is our panel this morning. Just before the break, we talked about the demolitions going on in Mavoko over the controversial Portland cement land. We now want to move on to what the Standard describes as trouble in paradise. Today, what started as a tiff on who sits where between Prime Cabinet Secretary Mudavadi and Public Service CS Moses Kuria has opened the lead on power plays in the Kenya Kwanza government, with subtle threats being issued by senior government officials. The story is on page 6. It's also on the front page of the Daily Nation. Mudavadi takes on Koskei over roles and office. Prime Cabinet Secretary and Foreign and Diaspora Affairs CS Musalia Mudavadi has accused Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Felix Koskei of overstepping his mandate, escalating an ongoing tussle with Public Service CS Moses Kuria over the roles and locations of their offices. And when Kipruto Arap Kirwa, you've been a cabinet minister. Yeah. How big is this deal of where a minister gets to sit which office and when to move one from one place to another? A cabinet reshuffle happened. It should be automatic.
Yes, but it is very interesting because you see the office at the railway was designated for Prime Cabinet Secretary. Now, the portfolio of foreign affairs has just been added to him. And therefore, I think, and being a senior person in government, I would have expected the head of public service to consult with him, because a minister may choose to operate from Marambe House, or may choose to operate from any other office for that matter. So it is a matter that should have been done without necessarily getting into the public domain. It is the first time I'm hearing of such issues, and it is a bit of a problem in terms of housekeeping, because that office was fashioned for Prime Cabinet Secretary, the one of Railway. And I would not have expected this kind of issue to arise, because the Foreign Affairs Office is okay, it's a good office, but perhaps fairly small for the portfolio of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, or even Treasury Building. So it's a matter that I think Head of Public Service should be informed by protocol, that really when you are dealing, Musalia Mudavadi may be anything to many people, but to many of us Kenyans, we respect him. He understands government, and his demeanor is different from many of these ministers that we know. His demeanor is almost akin to that of Mheshimiwa Kaguchia here. He will comment on something when he's sure that, and for him to go public about that, it's a matter that I think the president should take note.
Yes. Yeah. Kaguchia, for Musalia Mudavadi to take to Twitter to actually say, for the avoidance of doubt, the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary still remains housed at the railway headquarters. Do you see a sense, because there are people who argue that probably it was an attempt to undermine the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, because yes, moving him from one office to another, yes, the docket for foreign affairs has its own headquarters, but there's that role of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Moving him up and down, don't you see that as an attempt to undermine that position?
I'm not sure whether anyone would want to move the Prime Cabinet Secretary. And maybe just to use his words, for avoidance of doubt, he's a senior to Moses Kuria, and he's a supervisor. He's the one who's supposed to also be coordinating them. And so I do not see a situation where in government you observe hierarchy. And seniority is very important. And for all intents and purposes, Musalia Mudavadi is way senior than Moses Kuria. Through, I mean, if you were to look at portfolio, if you were to look at experience, if you were to look at, in every aspect, anyway. So there can't be comparison. And really, if you ask me, I actually think this story might have been blown out of proportion. Of course, because there is also the desire to try and show there is division in government.
Trouble in paradise.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be a headline in a national newspaper.
But the fact that it's on both the front pages of the Standard and the Daily Nation. I've worked for a newspaper, and I know these editors don't sit down to decide that we'll have this on the front page.
No, you don't say they don't sit down. Don't say they don't sit down. Sometimes they are also well coordinated. I mean, let me not say much, but we have had a history in Kenya. Probably not, or maybe not with these words, but we have a history in Kenya where headlines have actually been bought, and it is a clear fact. It's known. People who actually, someone sits somewhere and decides what headline is going to run tomorrow morning, and they pay for it. Okay. And it's known. It's a fact. So don't say that there's usually no coordination. But the issue is, what I would want to say is that I do not think there's really an issue, because you cannot argue with your boss. Okay. The office that has been done at Railways is, as Honorable Waziri has said, is fashioned for the Prime Cabinet Secretary. He can only move there if he so wishes. You get? That can't be in any way arguable, even out there for debate. Okay. No, not at all. Yeah. Moses Kuria must occupy the office where he's allocated. Probably where Aisha Jumwa was seated before, or where she was sitting before. Maybe that's where he need to go and sit, or any other office that will be allocated. And I also want to believe that the head of public service should also be able to resolve that, as fast as possible. Yeah, but even if we were to look at who is to take choice, who is to decide first, Musalia Mudavadi would have to take his take first, and then whatever else remains, every other person, every other waziri is then settled.
To be fair to CS Moses Kuria, on being asked the question, he said he can work from anywhere. He does not mind about the luxuries of office. That's what he said. But this is one, the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary is one that is under discussion, even before the National Dialogue Committee, that the purpose is to entrench this office in the Constitution, along with that of the official leader of opposition. Do you see a possibility of more squabbles in which office will sit? Because now it would appear Harambee Avenue is full already. Even initially when Musalia Mudavadi was, it was said that his office would be at the railway headquarters. I remember myself talking about some jokes around him having to navigate through the Haile Selassie roundabout. Do you foresee a bigger problem with the office of the official leader of opposition?
Well, I think the office of official leader of the opposition shall lie elsewhere, because strictly speaking, we are not part of the Kenya Kwanza administration. We are likely to get our offices elsewhere, and we will not mind anywhere, even if we are to operate from River Road, as long as it is safe for us to access our offices. Secondly, I think this issue, as Mheshimiwa Kaguchia said, should not even have come to the public domain. Should have been a matter that would have been discussed and finished with just a cabinet memo. And you see, before the head of public service, if there is any memo he wrote, writing a memo, you are supposed to consult the minister. And the two ministers even should. Even why, and there is the office of Aisha Jumwa as the person in charge of public administration. I do not know. I do not know why such an issue had to start.
I think the confusion came with the transfer of the role of supervising government and government performance, delivery and government performance, which was initially under the Prime Cabinet CS and now under CS Moses Kuria. But
delivery unit, supervision and delivery, while they are one end of the stick, the other end of the stick, I thought monitoring delivery, like when we were doing performance contracting under Kibaki 1, that was done by the Ministry of, what do you call it? It was Ministry of Planning that was able to meet out some of those deliverables, and of course it was benchmarked on the discussions done by the officers in every ministry. And each officer was saying, okay, we can achieve this within stipulated time. Therefore, the Ministry of Planning was just to monitor, plus, of course, the monitoring unit under the Office of the President. But I don't think Moses Kuria now is in charge of functions of supervising and coordination of government.
It's the delivery bit.
It is the delivery bit, but supervision is still under Musalia. And of course, there is what they call government dispatch. That government dispatch must also be clear. And therefore, whoever was interpreting as either a problem of English or does not understand how structures of governance are done.
Okay. Yeah. Let's now move on to the politics. And the biggest story in politics today is Raila. According to the Daily Nation, Raila endorses Kalonzo to face Ruto in 2027 State House contest. On the Standard, they're a bit cautious. They say Raila's praise for Kalonzo raises eyebrows. And this stemmed from the president's visit to Nyanza, where he said he's now ready to face Kalonzo. And Raila was simply responding to the president. Do you think that this is another instance where the media is reading a bit too much? The Daily Nation going all out and saying, yes, Raila has endorsed Kalonzo for 2027.
I'm not sure Raila would be endorsing Kalonzo. So long as Raila is alive in 2027, he will vie. And so long as he's kicking and healthy, he will vie. And I can also tell you, now, it's probably just banter. It's good if Raila vies. It's good for most of us. For those people who follow him in Nyanza very keenly, the Raila mania kind of a wave is very good for them. For those who also survive from other areas like Mount Kenya region, the Raila phobia is also a good thing for them. It's buoyance, makes work easier, and also brings about better voter turnout. Without a Raila presidency in 2027, you definitely would have a challenge in some of the areas.
Saying a Kalonzo candidature would change the game?
I mean, that would be a bit, it would neutralize the zeal and passion with which people go to the ballot with. And that's a reality, and I talk this as a political analyst. And so anyone then who is planning for 2027 must plan with Raila on the ballot and without Raila on the ballot. I mean, having said that, Raila likes these political games, and he wants to still remain that enigmatic approach to his politics. So I think he would still want to run in 2027. And so the newspaper that is saying he praises, I think is more correct. But again, then it's also understandable that the kind of moves that the president has made recently has also made them a bit confused. The good friends in Azimio, to some extent, are getting a bit mixed up, especially to interpret the moves that the president is making and the kind of reception he's getting in different areas. If you look at the presidential visit in Nyanza, you would not have expected that that would have happened without president going with Raila Odinga. One would have imagined that the president, and I know that is what some of the people were waiting for, that after the bipartisan talks in Bomas, then there would probably be crossing of laws, and then Raila and Ruto would be good friends, and now Raila would welcome Ruto to Nyanza, and he would take him there. But look at what happened. Even before the bipartisan talks, Ruto is already in Nyanza and makes a very solid tour and endears himself to the people, paints Nyanza yellow in a very big way. And the reception is fantastic. Of course, the governors are also confused at that point in time. How do we go about this? The president is now coming to Nyanza. Do we receive him? Do we not? Do we attend his meetings? Do we not? And of course,
that confusion, they all came out publicly and welcome.
Yeah, I'm telling you now the confusion behind the scenes. This is not what you saw. And one of the governors, I think Orengo in Siaya, at some point actually said it. He verbalized it. He said, you know, Mr. President, when you said you are coming, we had to sit down and have a talk and discuss as to whether we are going to be receiving you. He actually said it openly in a public forum. And we sat down, and I think they agreed, let us attend. Why? Definitely there was no much of an option here. Even if you do not attend as a governor, the president will come, he will do what he's doing, and then you'll be seen like you're the enemy of the people, because the president will come, launch the project, give the money, and start them off. Okay. And if you don't appear, then it will be negative on you. So that kind of an approach on where the president is probably doing what he did in Central Kenya or Mount Kenya region, where he's going directly to the people and sustaining it for some time. And consistently engaging the public itself directly without having to go through the traditional leaders. It's something that is definitely shaking the cause and the foundations of Azimio and the Nyanza leadership. Okay. Now look at what also has happened also in Turkana. I was privileged to have accompanied the president for 2 days visit in Turkana. I was with him throughout. And I saw what happened there. I saw the response of the Turkanas when he was there, and I was left without any doubt whatsoever that the Turkana County is solidly going to work with the president, and not only during the 5-year term, but also in the election. Okay. It was not a campaign. The president did not actually campaign. He told them, you may not have voted for me, but here I am.
But he has made mention to 2027 quite a number of times. It's happening also now with the Azimio. And Taifa Leo says, nitakufa na Kalonzo 2027, quoting Raila. And a slight reference to that Tosha statement, Kalonzo Tosha. Are we reading too much into this statement?
Well, too much in the sense that political landscape is likely to change between now and the next election. As you know, elections in Kenya determined in the last 1 year. That's when you can almost know how the wind will blow. The political landscape is going to be shifting, and some of the players in Azimio may end up in Kenya Kwanza or a new formation, and vice versa. And this therefore means that any political analyst should be cautious on making strong statements. For Raila to say tutakufa na Kalonzo may actually mean they are going again to repeat the same ticket, 2027.
Going to die together.
Well, I don't know whether dying is, in Kiswahili is different from translated into English. Where kufa na mtu in Kiswahili means that come rain, come shine, I'll be with you. So that's the interpretation I give. And as I've always said, Raila is still a factor because of a number of reasons. There are only 2 Kenyans who can transfer their constituencies to a new formation, Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Today, if William Ruto said he's going to support Raila for president come 2027, the Kalenjin constituency will go with him. Likewise, Raila and his supporters, if he was to support Kalonzo 2027 or any other player for that matter, that person is going to be a formidable candidate against a sitting president.
Is this a conversation that's alive within the Azimio formation? This time, we're already talking about who are the possible candidates for 2027?
Well, I do not want really to make a statement because it has not been officially discussed. But what I know, and many people have been writing obituaries of Raila politically without even seeking his consent or his tacit approval. And therefore, I do not want to be the first one to make a careless statement about the absence of Raila or presence of Raila in the next election. Raila will be present because I suspect is in good health, and there's no reason, and he still got that political base. Unlike what many people are thinking that Nyanza is shifting yellow, it is not true. People of Nyanza, I think through the message Raila has been extending is that let them be peaceful, let them receive leaders as they come and as they go. But it's not a factor that President William Ruto is going to get a lot of support from Nyanza. And if he did, it will be the weakness of the candidate against him that might make him gain traction. After all, he was in ODM at some stage. But most important, it is his promises that we'll have him re-elected or have him not re-elected in the next election.
And it is very interesting that barely a year into William Ruto's administration, we are already talking about what will happen in 2027, the next election. And truth be told, it's not just us, the citizens, but the leaders themselves, the president included, is already talking about 2027. His deputy is already talking about who Mount Kenya will support in 2027. But as Bwana Kipruto Arap Kirwa says, a lot will happen between now and then. And one of those very interesting things that are said to happen are the party elections that we anticipate. The UDA has come out and said it's going to hold its party elections in December this year. And ODM said they're hoping to have elections early next year. Now, elections for political parties are something that we have not witnessed in a very long time. I think ODM attempted it a few years back, and well, people may vary the success rate of that. We've already seen a split in opinion, even within UDA, on whether or not these elections should go on. Do you think that party elections could actually determine a lot in how politics change heading towards 2027?
Let me first say that the issue of 2027 and the politics is not wrong to engage in, to handle politics. I think one of the things that Ruto must do, he must handle the economy and the politics, even though his biggest competitor in 2027 will be the economy. He will have to face the issue of how the economy has performed much more than any other political candidate that will be there. That really is my prediction. But again, the issue of political management is very, very important for him. We have had a president in this country who managed politics so well, neglected the economy, and we failed in a big way. We had another one who came, managed the economy so well, mismanaged the politics, and again we failed in a big way. We have one also who came, mismanaged politics, mismanaged the economy, and things just did not work at all. We must then learn from the past that William Ruto must then manage politics and economy, both of them together. And that is why the way William Ruto is doing it is the right way. Bold, and he has time. He has time for both. If you look at the way he is engaging the issue of economy, he has time. If you look at the way he's engaging the issue of politics, he seems to have time. Why? Because he's charismatic, he's hardworking, and he is also out there and willing to engage and put his mind into what he's doing. The issue of the UDA grassroots elections is true, is a hot potato. I know you are just trying to be a bit more modest and diplomatic to say that ODM tried, and you do not want to say exactly what happened. But the truth of the matter is that they tried and failed terribly, miserably. But the fact that they tried and failed doesn't mean that we can't succeed where ODM has failed. In any case, ODM has failed in many things where UDA has succeeded. So let us give it a trial.
Do you feel that this would be the biggest challenge for UDA as a party? So far, all the positions have been appointed. Going for grassroots elections could determine a lot and could change a lot of the synergy within the party.
It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a bit troublesome. It's going to be a bit rough. Quite a bit. I mean, when you are talking about an election, of whatever kind, especially
what do you think will change after that, after these elections, if at all they happen in December? What do you predict could change?
You see, the thing is that whatever must change, must change. Mm-hmm. And the good thing is that it's being handled early in the day, so that whatever changes that come then are accommodated.
Do you think, my question is targeted towards the general Kenya Kwanza formation.
Yes.
Do you see that changing as a direct result of this election?
Well, you know, the elections are not in the Kenya Kwanza parties. It's only in UDA.
Because of the suggestion, I'm asking that because of the suggestion by the UDA current SG that some of the that parties within the bigger Kenya Kwanza coalition should actually fold up, and those people find ownership and belonging within UDA. Now the UDA elections are coming. If at all they don't do that by that time, the party will move on.
I think he's just being responsible by advising his counterparts on the other side that the train is now leaving station. Don't allow the train to leave station, then you are left behind, because you might have a problem catching up. The president himself has said that it's not a must that you fold up your party. He has encouraged them to fold up their parties, but he says again it's not a must. If you do not want, then you must not. But what is likely to happen is that should we succeed, and we must succeed, as a UDA in doing our grassroots elections, then you're going to have such a strong structure that is going to be at your doorstep with your little party. And you know what that means. Your relevance in 2027 might also be determined by how strong the political party becomes in your doorstep. And so if then you are to fold up your smaller party and join the bigger party and then control this bigger party in your region, it probably would have bigger dividends for any political leader. But in a country where people have used smaller political parties as vehicles, what Mwangi Kionjori would call kaumbwa ya kuwinda, where people have done that in the past and succeeded, then the traction is still there. They still use it as a serious currency in negotiating in politics. But William Ruto's UDA is going probably to change that dynamic. It's going to render the smaller political parties irrelevant.
And the smaller parties that Kaguchia is referring to includes one ANC party, which you are a deputy party leader at some point.
At some stage,
do you see this happening? Ford Kenya, a party that has been there for decades, even before UDA was thought of.
But before he answers that,
yeah.
I just wanted to point out something that Waziri here said, that there are two politicians who can be able to transfer their base to any other person as they so wish. You know, before 2022, we were saying there are 3 politicians who can transfer their base to whoever they wish. And there was Uhuru Kenyatta, there was William Ruto, and there was Raila Odinga. But that notion is now disputed, it is dented, because Uhuru Kenyatta was unable to transfer his base to Raila Odinga as he so wished. Okay. And that tells you that the public is a little bit more aware now than before. Okay. And so any of those political leaders, should they do anything that is not moving with their masses and their people, they are likely to move alone and leave the people. Okay. So William Ruto, miscalculating on anything, can actually find himself alone without the Kalenjin nation. Raila Odinga, miscalculating on his moves and trying to think that he can transfer his base to another political leader, might also find very serious resistance. Okay. And I know for sure, if he's going to transfer his political base to Kalonzo Musyoka, the Luo nation will be up for grabs. Okay.
Well, you know, he's a good lawyer, and he's putting it as if that statement was universally accepted, that there are 3 leaders. Maintained that it is only William Ruto and Raila Odinga who have that capacity to transfer the base, whether it is now or even in the past. Even when Uhuru was the president and William Ruto was the deputy president, I knew he had a solid base at home, and he can easily transfer that. But that's not really the focus. My focus when it comes to political parties is the lack of trust. In Africa, the main problem and why parties don't exist for long is that they are either fashioned around an individual or around a coalition of communities. And that coalition is benchmarked on the fear of the rest. And this is something that we have not been able to cure here in Kenya, nor have we been able to cure in Africa. That mistrust is something that I thought President William Ruto would have taken advantage of by creating trust among the coalition partners. In my opinion, it will be important for us to still maintain a coalition of parties, but still build strong parties at the grassroots. But this emasculation of other political parties, William Ruto will find himself destroying Fort Kenya, destroying ANC and other parties associated with UDA today, but he will look for other partners to try to win the next election, because it has proven, even NAC that we presided over its formation, it dissipated when Raila left the team, and therefore, and by the time we went for the next election, we were talking of another formation called the PNU. And for your information, no party for the last 20 years in Kenya has been able to form the government twice. Even the Kenya Kwanza may find itself in a new formation, or it may not be able to form the next government, because that mistrust is still existing among our people. It's only KANU and KADU at the beginning of time in 1963 that had some kind of philosophical foundation, because KANU was unitary government, the other one, KADU, was for Majimbo, or devolved system of government that you have it today, but it was in bigger units called provinces. It was about 8 regions within the nation of Kenya. But after that, KANU presided over the destiny of this country for the period that you know, and later on, the second multi-party election has not been able to form strong political parties. UDA would have achieved, because they went on issue-oriented kind of campaign, and if the promises they gave, they were able even to deliver half of them, they would have made a lot of sense. But when President William Ruto formed the government, he has almost made it community government by appointing people from certain regions and ignoring the rest of the country. And even when you go to the police, when you go to Teacher Service Commission and other institutions in this country, you can almost, even KRA, the new boys in town or new boys and girls in town trying to chase people like hawkers in the street, they come from certain communities. This is where he lost the script. Otherwise, he did maintain the way he did. The other parties would have folded quietly. You don't need to tell them.
Do you think that these party elections could actually be one way of changing this narrative of it being a shareholder kind of government? That probably by you going through grassroots elections, then it would have a national appeal as a party. And with that, would these other smaller parties within the larger Kenya Kwanza coalition survive to 2027 with the behemoth of UDA as a lead party?
Well, I first want to make a correction that the William Ruto administration has not sidelined any community in Kenya. In any case, William Ruto has embraced all the communities in Kenya. And if you look at the way he is traversing the whole of this republic, and if you look at the appointments from the Kenya Kwanza government, you realize that they are not from any community in particular. I mean, how would you say that William Ruto is sidelining a community when, for example, the person at the helm of the Kenya Defense Forces in this Republic of Kenya has come from a community that has never produced any other leader of that stature?
Military hierarchy has little to do with the presidency.
You can't say that, my brother. We have had, I mean, the president had the leeway to appoint the senior most military person to an ambassadorial position or to any other position in government, and that would still have remained, and he would have still appointed the person he wanted. So you can't say that the president is just a conveyor belt in terms of military hierarchy. He will appoint someone to another position if he so wishes. In fact, he caught his supporters flat-footed because many of them thought he would do that. But when he declared the gentleman to be the in charge, I mean, it was refreshing also to many of us who don't believe in tribalism and ethnicity. I mean, if you even look at the person in charge of the whole of the administration of this Republic of Kenya, P.S. Omolo, I mean, this gentleman who comes from the Nyanza region, and I know some of the people, when they're saying that some of the areas are being sidelined, they would want to mean that those kind of areas are being sidelined. But if you look at him also having given even the cabinet docket that is controlling the biggest agenda of government in terms of digitization coming from Nyanza region again, look at the KRA, for example, which was led by, in Uhuru's time, was led by someone from Mount Kenya region. Now look at, he has given another very sharp gentleman from Western Kenya. I mean, the president has taken people from all communities, from all areas. I mean, if you look at the PSs, the president was very deliberate to pick a PS from every single county in this Republic of Kenya. And that way he was trying to ensure that there's diversity in his government, that there is representation of every county, of every community in his government, and that was very deliberate. Look at even the nominations that were done. I mean, when you have given those senior positions to people from all communities, then what you're trying to say is that you're trying to entrench every community into the government. So I would really want to correct that so that we don't have that.
What about the statements attributed to the deputy president? He has been very key and insisting that he will ensure that some certain positions are retained for shareholders.
What he probably has been saying is that you need to have appointments of people who, or more appointments of people who supported the government. It is really not from one community. If you go to Nyanza region and you have the people who supported the government, there are those who newcomers who are now coming later on after we are in government. If you have to appoint people into senior positions when you're in Nyanza region, do not go to the newcomers who are coming, come little Johnnies. I mean, go to the people who stood with the government then, yes, and have them on board.
It was categorical.
If you go to Turkana,
because he said Rift Valley and Mount Kenya.
No.
He did.
Well, yes. My interpretation is this, that you're looking at people who were in the formation of the Kenya Kwanza when the campaigns were going on, and versus the people who are coming late. It doesn't matter where. I mean, if it is Mount Kenya region, for example, do not consider those who are coming in late as opposed to those who are there. If you have someone who was there with the government and is highly qualified, do not go for a newcomer and leave the one who was there before. Okay. If you go to Coast region, there are those people who stood with the government. If you go to Northeastern region, which was, of course you know was notorious of jumping into government after William Ruto was declared president, and easily you can have those people who were there originally kind of pushed aside because more senior people came in later. So the argument was, if you have people in coming from Northeastern region who are more, who are qualified and why in the Kenya Kwanza formation, give them consideration first before you give in to or before you allow the new ones to come on board. That really is my interpretation.
And because he's really been criticized over that statement, hence my question, do you think that these elections in December, if they happen, would be one way of changing that narrative for
yes, definitely. Let me tell you, we require a government that is de-ethnicized. And I really support the president on that. Let us have a government of ideology. And that's why I again dare say, it's good, my brother here, Kipruto clearly puts it, the Kenya Kwanza government ran on an agenda, on an ideology, not more of ethnicity. And that is very true. And, but probably also what can be corrected is that you can't say that the Kenya Kwanza administration has failed to fulfill the promises and the agenda that came on with, because the Kenya Kwanza government has been in office for 1 year. Okay. Are you getting? Mm-hmm. And it is clearing a lot of the mess that was there before. But as we are moving forward, I mean, a lot of promises are going to be delivered. And remember again that a lot of many other promises have been done. Look, for example, employment of 56,000 teachers in the country. Look at registration of more seniors from 1.2 million, actually from 1.1 million to 2.5 million seniors to get cash transfer. Look at the promotion of teachers that has been pending for years and years. I mean, look at the employment of the CHVs, the community health volunteers.
It is very clear that
engaging them and equiping them.
I want us to use a conversation about the political parties.
So when we go now to the political party, the political party, I really want to bring that connection so that you can understand and you can see that the connection between a political party that is national is connected to the ideology and connected to the issues. You know, in Turkana, we attended a dinner where we had leadership of Turkana region. And I took notice of one woman, one lady, who talked in that dinner, and she claimed to be she said she's the one in charge of UDA in that town. And that lady talked with a lot of pride, with a lot of boldness and courage, and said, you know, when I hear people saying this, Mr. President, I explain to them because I am the government here. And I was amazed as the connection between which a lady in far-flung Turkana region in the north is connected to a political party, the ruling political party, and actually feels as government and talks as government and behaves as government. Okay. That means that person is going to be taking the governor or any other person who is elected in that area to task on delivery of the political party's manifesto.
Let's bring Bwana Kirwa into this conversation because we may talk about the possibility of carrying out elections at the party level, grassroots elections. It is not an easy undertaking. Parties have tried and failed. I think only KANU did it successfully at the grassroots level, and it had branches all over the country. Do you think UDA and President William Ruto is biting too much that he would be unable to chew?
Well, I don't know, because when I left UDA, we had thoughts that we should be able to do that as a way of entrenching the party. But any time we thought of carrying on with the elections, we realized it was going to polarize the party and cause more division. I'm not even sure about December. I think December is too close. Perhaps it may be March next year, if they have to carry elections at all. Otherwise, it may be just some kind of some makeshift arrangements that some individuals shall be allowed, others, because even the nomination of UDA nationally, I was still in UDA at that particular time. Some of the areas, they were shambolic, because we must understand that KANU used to succeed because KANU was the government, KANU was the administration, KANU was everything, because most of the elections were supervised by provincial administration. But as to whether UDA is going to reach out to all corners of the country, it will be a feat that if they achieve, they will have done something so big. Now, when it comes to the issue of promises, I'm sure Mheshimiwa here is now falling into the trap of trying to sing some of the simple songs and some of the small stories. Fundamentally, William Ruto said VAT on fuel was going to be reduced, and he was going to remove the 9 taxes that are there in fuel. Today, for 1 liter of fuel that you consume at the petrol station, 60% is just tax. 40% is the cost of fuel landed at Mombasa. So that has fundamentally changed the landscape and the narrative of President William Ruto. They have failed in that sense, and therefore they are likely to fail us in many other cases. He said the dollar was going to come to 115. Dollar is now 150 shillings to a dollar. So they cannot just tell us about registering all these, the older people. Naturally, any administration ought to do that. They have been talking about BAMBA harvest. Today, I can assure you, if we get 40 million bags of maize, it will be by luck, unless El Nino will provide some extra bags of maize. And the third and most important, even the post-harvest challenges, they are not preparing themselves to take care of. So I think they need to be modest. They need, and I was very specific on employment. It's teachers, those in the armed forces, and those in KRA.
Okay.
The adverts they gave us later on, the advert was switched off, and the people were just cronies or people in government.
Okay.
But whether it is Owalo, whether it is the head of the defense forces, Tonje report provided that that cycle was going to take place. So the gentleman in charge of defense, by virtue of his training, by virtue of his capacity and the seniority, were qualified. And I don't think we should be giving tribes to individuals who perform well. If people perform well, let us allow them. Even the president in America one time had his brother as Attorney General because they wanted somebody who could do that job. So even if William Ruto had a brother who can do a better job elsewhere, we will not begrudge him, but we must be fair when we go to the lower cadre of people employed by government.
Okay. I'm sure you'd want to...
yeah, the issue of employment, again, is not being considered on who supported government and who comes from which region. For your information, the issue of employment is being done at the sub-county level, not at the national level. So every sub-county in this Republic of Kenya, and I can tell you, because it's a fact, if you're a member of parliament of a sub-county somewhere or a constituency somewhere in Kwale or in Bondo or in Siaya, that particular constituency is employing, if it's teachers' employment, you employ teachers from that sub-county. Being posted, they can be posted anywhere else, but in terms of employment, you employ them from the ground. And when you come, you must come with your ID showing that you come from that sub-county. So there's no way you're going to have someone in Mukurweini employed in Bondo. Neither are you going to have someone in Bondo employed in Mukurweini. It's being done at the sub-county level, and that has ensured fairness across the country. I've had situations where we have lost very nice BOM teachers in Mukurweini who came from Nyanza, for example, and had to go back to Nyanza for their employment. Only after their employment, now we can recall them back to Mukurweini. And that is what has happened. Okay. If you, for example, you're going to take, like now we are taking the CHVs, the community health volunteers. There are 100,000 of them across the country. These are people who have been there. Mukurweini, for example, has 320. They have been there. They have been working for government voluntarily. Now they are going to get a stipend. I mean, there's no way you are going to have someone who sleeps in Mukurweini and who has been working as a CHV in Mukureni employed in Siaya as a CHV. No. Okay. It is a person in Siaya who is going to be employed there. So what is happening, and again, if you look at the seniors also, the seniors are also being registered for cash transfer in Inua Jamii, pesa ya wazee, from their regions and from their home areas and from their sublocation. So again, it is not selective on who voted for government or who comes from what region. And now you can equate that to the political party. That even the political party is going to have its registration and its elections done at the grassroots in every polling station in the Republic of Kenya. So what you're trying to look at Kenya is more of a national, state, more of a national approach to everything. So that whatever distribution of government resources is given to all the regions equitably across the country. Okay. If, for example, you look at the issue of promotion of teachers, TSC has announced or has advertised about 35,000 positions of promotion. Again, those promotion positions are the interviews are going to be done at the sub-counties across the Republic of Kenya. So, Mugala muwe na haki umpe.
Okay.
I mean, it's good to be fair that this government is more national and has a more national approach to issues than anything else.
Okay.
And
because of time, there's one thing I would want us to talk about as we get close to the end, and that is the bipartisan talks, or rather the talks that are going on at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Dialogue Committee. As of today's date, they're about 2 weeks to that 60-day deadline, and chances are they would ask for, I think the proposal is for them to ask for a 30-day extension to finish their work. Yet what they've agreed on so far, it would appear, and this I'm borrowing from some of the headlines at the weekend, is more to do with what the politicians would want. Positions, funds, CDF and the others. They've agreed on those. Yet the issue that beleaguers the mwananchi, which is the high cost of living, even the dailies do not even have space for that kind of discussion this Monday. Fuel cost, you made mention of it, 217 shillings a litre, meaning 500 shillings can barely get you 2 litres of fuel. For a country like Kenya to have discussions at that level and ignore the prevailing cost of living, are we not missing the point?
I think the cost of living is sort of subsumed in the whole political environment. The way I understand the cost of living is a factor of a number of issues. One is the political atmosphere that needs to be created so that the administration of the day can carry on with its activities without interference from any other quarter. The second issue is how to reduce pilferage, and that can be done when there is proper accountability on those in power, and those in the opposition are able to point out that there is a problem here. The third issue, as far as the cost of living is concerned, is the question of the administration of the day checking on some of the excesses that they have witnessed, including the issue of overborrowing, which they have done, despite the fact that they were promising that they were going to reduce borrowing. Right now, they have done about 2 trillion in terms of borrowing since they took over. And this therefore means all those issues are wrapped together to see how they can assist in reducing the cost of living. The two offices that have been, one created, proposed to be created, and the other one to be entrenched in the Constitution, are offices that create a bit of stability, so that those in power are checked by those in the opposition. And for that reason, it creates a healthy environment for us to be able to manage some of the resources of the state.
Well, but yet there's some practical issues, and you mentioned one of it, something like VAT on fuel prices, that the doubling from 8% to 16% was actually passed through Parliament. These are things that are practical, that can actually be calculated. Numbers don't lie. The fact that the cost of fuel is at the level it is right now could be, to some extent, as a direct result of the doubling of that VAT rate from 8 to 16%. That is something that can actually be worked on by MPs. It was within their purview to work on it. They failed to do it because the narrative up until now is that fuel prices are beyond what we can do. There's nothing much we can do about it. Is that really the case?
It is a sorry situation. You know, I have listened to my brother here. He has said that there's something he has called the small story. But what he's calling the small story is actually the big story. One of the things you realize about this VAT on fuel is that it had already been committed as collateral to some of the loans that had been taken. You know, sometimes I know we sometimes don't want to say some of these things so much openly, but I can inform our viewers. They can have that benefit of knowing that the VAT that we collect on fuel is already committed to a loan, is a collateral, is already security. I know when the president committed, and my brother here put it correctly and said, I promise sometimes will be different from when the rubber meets the road. When now you go to the documents and find that what you are actually promising the public, you're going to remove, and find that actually it doesn't even belong to you, doesn't belong to the government, doesn't belong to them. It actually belongs to a lender somewhere. There's someone who lent money to this country, and all they wanted was an assurance that the VAT collected on fuel will be used to guarantee that loan. So once you're in office now, you cannot tamper or interfere with the terms of that loan agreement. So that is a situation where the government finds itself in, and it's really a sorry state. And that is why I say it's not a small story, it's a big story. Today we say that William Ruto is borrowing. But the truth of the matter is, two things have happened. Because of the depreciation of the shilling, Kenya shilling to the dollar, we have hit the ceiling, the borrowing ceiling that had been set without our plan. So any borrowing that William Ruto would do now would only be a relief of another loan, or will only be a reorganization or rescheduling of another loan. So that's the only argument, that's the only arrangement he can make, that prolong this loan and now reschedule this way, reschedule that way. In fact, I was telling him the other day, Mr. President, I don't envy you. It's a difficult situation because the president is collecting a little bit much more money than was collected during the handshake government time. But most of this money is actually, almost all this money is going to repayment of these particular loans. And the president can't borrow anything anymore for development. He can only have the loans rescheduled. Okay. So he gets money to reschedule another loan. And so it's actually borrowing from this hand, giving to this hand, to ensure that he has some kind of maneuver space, okay, which he has been denied by the situation where he finds himself in. So it's truly a difficult situation. Okay. And
because of time, I'll ask you to make your final comments as well, just briefly.
Yeah, so what I would say is that there's commitment, there's a will, there's a presence of mind by the Kenya Kwanza administration to ensure that the challenges that Kenyans are facing every other day are dealt with. And, you know, apart from the global issues that sometimes they do affect the way the economy is running, almost all the other issues that are in control, the government has control over, will eventually be under control. Okay. And I would say that some of the things that are looked at as politicians' issues are actually not politicians. They are for the public. For example, the issue of CDF. Any Kenyan who lives in this country, particularly in the, who actually benefit a lot from CDF, will tell you that the CDF arrangement is really not a politician's issue. Only that it is distributed from the political offices, or rather from influences that might be connected to the political offices. But the people who eventually benefit are the common mwananchi. If you remove bursary, for example, the CDF bursary, definitely you will have interfered with the schooling of so many children in this country. Okay. And so when you're trying to entrench an issue like CDF into the system, into the constitution, it is so much pro-people that you cannot ignore that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana. Finally, very briefly.
Thank you so much. I just want to agree with my brother, but he needs just to check one or two facts. The truth of the matter is that we are collecting less than the previous year by Uhuru, despite the fact that there are multiplicity of taxes. The second issue is that you are accusing your own candidate that either he did not know how government is run, because he should have been aware of those commitments about VAT, or he was just cheating the public for purposes of votes. It is unfortunate, and it is something that is important for leaders in future to speak from facts, but not from creating emotions among the people.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former Cabinet Minister, and Honorable John Kaguchia, MP Mukurweini, our panelists this morning. As we look at the state of the nation, quite some varied discussions today, ranging from squabbling in government, the demolitions in Mavoko, and trouble in paradise, as well as the National Dialogue Committee that continues with its work at the Bomas of Kenya. Now, as we wrap up this session, let me go through this editorial comment. Now, the current high cost of living is undeniably a pressing issue that needs immediate attention from the government. With the price of fuel soaring to 217 shillings and 36 cents per litre, the average citizen is feeling the pinch on a daily basis. This sharp increase in fuel costs ripples through the entire economy, leading to higher commuter fares and an uptick in the cost of manufacturing, which ultimately results in increased food prices. It's a vicious cycle that directly affects the quality of life for the ordinary citizens. Higher taxes on consolidated pay have further eroded household incomes. Families are struggling to make ends meet as their purchasing power diminishes. It is a bleak scenario that is causing financial hardship and insecurity for many. Even more disheartening is a seeming lack of urgency from our political leadership to address this matter. Despite more than 40 days of discussions by the National Dialogue Committee, the issue of the high cost of living is yet to be given the prominence it deserves. Instead, the committee seems more focused on reaching agreements that primarily benefit the political class. While new positions and funds for leaders might be appealing to them, the general public is left wondering who will champion their cause. This raises critical questions. Are our political leaders turning a blind eye to the struggles of the average citizen? Are they feigning helplessness in the face of rising living costs? Or do they simply consider the issue too challenging to tackle? The public is left in a state of disillusionment, feeling unheard and ignored. It is essential for our government to remember its primary duty, serving the people. Addressing the high cost of living should be at the top of the agenda, not buried beneath the political interests and power plays. The well-being of the general public must be the foremost concern of any responsible government. Is this too much to ask? This is our editorial commentary this morning on TV47.